Hello everyone, welcome back to our Cozy Hue at Home set, and I am so happy and honored. I have a very dear friend, and I consider you a dear friend now, Cynthia. Cynthia Fortlage. Amazing story, but girl, you've done it. You've moved away, you've started some incredible adventures, and I want to talk about it all because tomorrow you're gone.
I am.
Well, I mean,
I go back across the pond.
Yeah, you go back home to London,
Yes.
but you know, you've been here for almost a month
Yes.
now. Cynthia, what was it like to come home again?
It was, in the beginning, I was really nervous to return to Winnipeg. And part of it is that one of the aspects, given my background story, and I know it may explore element, was the fact that my identity that I had for 50 years, that in corporate world, they knew me, I had this professional network, I could never get away from it. And so when I left Winnipeg, I was able to let go and just be me. And that was so freeing. I can't even tell you how amazing that kind of feeling was. So coming back was like, oh no, is this going to be dumped back on my shoulders? Am I going to but I didn't. I haven't. So that was, and then the fact that I was, because of my daughter and her graduating, I was going to spend time with my ex that I haven't really communicated with in 6 years. So there was that level of anxiety as with it. Yeah, and then because I had lived in Winnipeg for 45 years, there was so many people to connect with, and it's just like, I don't even have time.
To see.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the family dynamic
Sure.
now. Because I know when we met, you were about to leave on this brand new journey.
Yeah.
And things were hard, or they were new, right?
Yes.
New for everybody.
Yep.
And you had this wonderful philosophy, which has now blossomed, I guess, into your mantra, acceptance without understanding.
Right.
And we had such a great conversation about that. And I think that not only me, but a lot of the other women that you've touched hearts with, that still resonates with us. So I want to say thank you,
You're welcome.
because it really, once you embrace that, things aren't as hard to accept afterwards, even if you don't understand. Thinking of your family now, what is the relationship like? I have 100 questions, but I know, is it, like women to women now, the relationship? Or is it still a little bit?
Well, I think start with the easy part.
Yeah.
My kids, right?
Yeah.
So the first year of my journey was, it was very tough, obviously, on everyone. And it was very disconnected with them. In fact, during the first year, I only saw them 3 times in the whole year.
Wow.
Compared to today, where when I'm in London, we have a video chat once a week.
Oh,
For at least an hour. So comparatively, it's like, okay, but today, my relationship with my daughter was amazing. When she was in London visiting me, which was the first time in 2.5 years, just like many of us, right, got to see each other. She said, Cynthia, there's something I need from you. I'm graduating this year. I want you at my graduation in Saskatoon. And so it's like, okay, I'll figure out how to do that, but sure. And of course that means my ex, her mother, was there too. We really haven't communicated in 6 years. And so this was our first time actually communicating together, and we did. And it was magical. It was wonderful. It was 2 friends meeting each other after a long time, after maybe, having a really severe spat, and starting the conversation, just to come back to a sense of being okay around each other. And it was. And, I thanked her, and I thanked the kid. It was a magical moment. And it was a week out of my month, but it was a magical week with family.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Did you have to do explaining? The why question?
Yeah. No.
No.
No. I think everybody was trying to kind of gauge. Certainly the kids were watching to see how their parents interacted. And I think we were watching to see how each other reacted. I wanted to be sensitive and aware, knowing that this was you know, it has been 6 years. We were
Yes.
married for 32. So to go from living together and talking all the time, like that's really difficult. And so now we're coming back and it's like, let's just have those first couple of conversations. And we did. And, you know, I mean, it's going to live in my memory, but there was one night, like we all sat on my daughter's couch, which was my fold out bed, and we all sat watching a movie as a family. A really odd family combination, but we were just having a family night watching a movie, and it was just magical.
Aw.
Yeah.
And these things now are so important,
Yes.
right? For you to even share these moments, you're giving hope to so many other people that are afraid to make that step and haven't understood why or accepted.
Right.
And you're missing out on so much. Like,
Yes.
look at like all of the beautiful things
Yeah.
that you have to give. And let's talk now
Yeah.
about what you're doing, because you're like the poster woman for LGBTQ and 2S, and now
Right.
you're with your business, CAF Services. Explain a little bit more on what you're now doing.
Wow. So there's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
So in short, so CIF Services, 3 core things I do. One is I educate through speeches, through workshops. 2, I end up doing corporate consulting in the space. So organizations want policy reviews. They look to create policies, you know, things like that. They want to know, what does the lens look like for someone who has the superpower of one leader, because I was a senior leader here in Winnipeg, one leader, 2 genders worth of experience, that I can put that lens on their business and give them some feedback as, what does it look like? What does it feel like? How can they address it, especially now with everything going on in the world, that, you know, we're all very hyper aware of how delicate human rights are, especially for women at this moment. So that's something that, again, I can bring that superpower to help organizations. And finally, it's not something to do as much of, but one-on-one support, peer support, mentor support. It could be full-out coaching, but that's really not my forte anymore. But I certainly am capable of doing it and happy to do it when I make the right connection with a person. So that's what I do with that. Most of my clients are corporations, businesses of all size, small, medium, large, who want to make life better for their employees, for their customers, for communities. I can bring that lens and help them. The other part of the work I do is through my volunteer work, which is at board level with organizations. So while I think have a pretty good history with certainly the LGBTQ plus community here in Winnipeg, through Rainbow Resource Center, of course, is now with, in fact, it was just announced on social media today officially, but with Stonewall Housing, which shares the name with Stonewall, the original organization, but Stonewall Housing in the UK, which deals with creating safe spaces for homelessness and the community at large. They use the acronym LGBTQ plus within there. Every organization has a different acronym of the rainbow alphabet. The other one that I'm very chuffed, British term about, very proud, is Outright Action International. Now, Outright Action International is a huge step for me because it's a global LGBTIQ organization. We are also part of the United Nations Secretariat for LGBTIQ issues. And we're all about LGBTIQ human rights globally, all 193 signatory countries of the United Nations.
Wow.
It's a big job. We're in 33 different countries currently with active projects and the work going on, and we continue to lobby governments and everything else. And it's the largest not-for-profit organization I've ever belonged to, and I have an absolute stellar board that I'm a part of.
Oh, that is so fabulous. You only went to your first board meeting, but what is the climate like, so to speak, globally for the community?
Well, a lot of the work, like, you know, we talked about the work going on in the Ukraine, right? There was over $1 million that we have raised and dispersed to help LGBTIQ organizations in the Ukraine to deal with the issues of displacement, medicine, every aspect with folks that were in the Ukraine. Of course, they're going to places like Poland and other places. So what's going on? Because they don't necessarily have laws that are also pro-LGBT. And so it's continuing advocacy work there. A lot of work in Africa. I think we're in about 15, 20 different countries. And Outright doesn't do the work. What we do is we find organizations on the ground and we fund them and we provide equipment and we make sure they can do the work that they need to do in their communities and to move it forward. And we're all about collecting the data. So when we go back to the United Nations, we're not talking, well, some of this or we feel that. It's here's the numbers, here's the statistics, here's what's going on, and we're talking from a factual perspective.
Wow. So there's accountability.
Complete accountability. And for us, it's about moving the needle on human rights for LGBTIQ people globally.
And so now you're living in London.
Yes.
And I want to go back to how it really has been like a metamorphosis, I want to say, you know, from a moth into a beautiful, or a, you know, a beautiful butterfly, basically. What is it like for you now? And I guess, where do you want to go with all of this information and giving, constantly giving? And I guess my question to you is, because you're constantly giving and you're so much information, when do you kind of go, oh, when do you get it back?
The work I do feeds my heart and my soul. When I was in Winnipeg, I had a 6-figure income as an executive. I'm not even close to a fraction of that with what I live on in London. I don't even live at the minimum wage, minimum income in London. But my heart's full and my soul knows that I'm doing the right work. And so I stay focused on that, knowing that those that get that and that get the message of acceptance without understanding, that get the message about human rights, that get the idea of seeing human beings first, they will engage with me. That will at least pay the bills, pay the rent, buy groceries. And you know what? Really, that's all I need, Tracy. I don't need a glamorous princess life that I used to live here in Winnipeg, you know, living over on Evergreen in you know, Osborne Village and everything else. My life is much simpler, but much more full. Wow.
Well, we're going to continue the conversation. I want to know all about what the future for, you know, to us LGBTQIA communities, how can we learn more too as well, and more on your acceptance without understanding. And I think about a book too. I heard you talking the other day. But we're going to take a little flashback, Cynthia. I just wanted to kind of introduce this next story. Involved you, the first time that we met each other, and a beautiful program at Deer Lodge Center that I don't think a lot of people know. And if you want to give a little shout out to Deer Lodge Center, that's fine.
Absolutely. Well, you know, Deer Lodge is very close to my heart. Also, the great team, but especially Dina, who I worked with. Absolutely amazing. If it's the clip I'm thinking of, Dina's there. And they gave me something that no one else had given me, and that was the ability to have confidence in my own ability to not have to rely on surgery or something else. And so this was owning the identity of my voice. And it was just a magical journey that I'm so thankful. And of course, they have an amazing event coming up in October that Winnipeggers should stay tuned and absolutely support.
Yes, no doubt. And that is the big gala at Deer Lodge Center on September 29th. And you can go get tickets at their website. But now here is the story on the speech therapy program at Deer Lodge Center.
Well, in 2016, I realized there was an unexplored journey in my life, that being my gender, and I began that process. And through that process, it led me here to Deer Lodge to provide support for the vocal services.
So we started seeing, I guess about 10 years ago is how the story starts. There was one clinician here practicing voice rehabilitation, and there was a need seen for individuals, mostly transgender females, so transitioning from male to female, wanting to pursue treatments to help feminize the voice so that it helps combat gender dysphoria and just the feeling that your voice is part of you and it needs to be congruent with your gender.
When I began the program, I was a working executive that was also doing public speaking on behalf of the organization, so certainly the use of my voice was very important, professionally as well as personally. And so to have an authentic voice that presented the same as the rest of my physical being was very important. And now that I've become an international public speaker, it is even more important that I am fully represented to who I am, and that everything kind of aligns and matches. And that's what Dear Lodge has been able to work with me to create that authentic presence.
Her outcomes are fabulous, and I think she's just very dedicated from the beginning. She does daily work, it's part of her life. She never misses a day. She always makes time for it and knows the importance of it. And then I think it's just developed she gets the feedback from society that make it that benefit. So there's a lot of benefits to coming to speech therapy to help feminize your voice.
A lot of it has to do with the muscles within your throat and in terms of using it, but it's even more finesse to the words that are used, the flow, what they call the lyrical flow, right, of a sentence, of the way women speak, the language as women that we use in a conversation. And also, you think about the breathiness, such as, do you end with a hard sound to the end of your sentence, or does it actually become softer and just kind of float out? And so where are you at on that? So, the frequency or pitch is just one piece, the breathiness is just another piece. There's many, many other layers that 2 years ago I had no clue, and I just thought it was get a really good falsetto. It is nothing like a good falsetto. It is finding a much more authentic voice that matches everything else that all the surgical and medical practitioners have been able to take me through, how I need to then massage and work with my voice to get to the same place.
Easy, it's staying on. So really, really, really nice, and you're happy with that too, right? It sounds really, really good. So
Cynthia's case is a very great case because we've got good outcomes. She had always good support to help her with her outcomes as well. But now I'm actually seeing a lot younger generations, and not only transgender, but individuals that identify as non-binary. So they're seeking services to help reflect their true self in their voice as well. So we're not seeing maybe not even masculinization or feminization, but even a neutral setting. So it's very different how we even do treatment. I think, for Dear Lodge, I think I'm very proud to be an SLP here at Dear Lodge. I think I'm very proud to say that I am part of the transgender program because people are so motivated and they do the work and then you get the outcomes. And I think that's very unique in a program to get such great outcomes consistently.
Dear Lodge is a fabulous center to start with. They have always been very accepting, and that's certainly, as a transgender individual, it certainly is a very important thing to find accepting, safe places. With that, the staff have also followed through, of course, with that and provided excellent care in terms of it's not just about, work hard, get to that. It's like, okay, how is your voice feeling? How are you feeling? Where are you at in your journey? And I've met many folks who practice but never actually put into practice what they're working on. For me, I lived it every single day. So people have heard me from the really rough, very low, gruff sounding that I used to have to the voice that I have today. And I continue to work and refine that every single day. I am the woman that I've always been, and I believe that every part of me is now reflecting who that is and sounds like who I am, and really is just me. I think the biggest message is we need to learn acceptance without understanding. As a society, we need to understand, and if we don't understand, we can't accept. We need to flip that. We need to learn to accept. And everybody's on a journey in their life. Nobody's ever at the end of their journey, but everybody's complete and they're going, oh, I'm sitting back. No, everybody's always growing, changing, evolving. And just because somebody's journey is different than yours, doesn't matter. And people like Deer Lodge make a difference in helping people travel their very own unique journey.
Girl, you know what's up. Ooh, say what, say what, say what. Girl, you know what's up. Ooh, say what, say what, say what. So tell me what's up. I'm feeling you. I'm feeling you. Girl, you know what's up. Say I'm feeling you. And I'm holding you. So tell me what's up. Tell me what's up. Girl, you know what's up. Ooh, say what, say what, say what. Girl, you know what's up.
Welcome back to Hue at Home. My guest is the beautiful Cynthia Fortlage. We just saw the speech therapy program story, and it really was like you training your voice like an opera singer every day.
Yeah, it has some fun. I play with it because it's like you get the phone call, and if somebody goes, "Oh, sir," then I know my voice isn't. I go, "Oh, you must want my husband." Oh, hang on, yeah, really, what? And then I go back and I go, "Oh, sorry, my husband said you wanted to talk to me." So I never knew how to do that before.
Yeah.
Deer Lodge taught me to do that, and so I just have fun with it now.
And is it just instinctive now? Or is it something
I still
again?
tune up my voice every morning.
Yeah.
Some days better than others, but
If you haven't had a little bit too much wine. But I mean, but these are the things. It's no different than putting on makeup, right?
Yep.
Or figuring out
Completely. Yeah.
doing your hair.
Yep.
But there are so many things that we do take
Right.
for granted.
Yep.
So the pressure, Cynthia.
Mm-hmm.
I've often wondered,
Right.
how do you deal with it? And the mental health issues too as well. Because I know that sometimes you just say to hell with it. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Sorry, I threw that one out.
That's a tough one. So, I mean, I meditate is one of the ways I've learned to meditate. And that's for me, more of an instantaneous kind of, okay, let's just slow down. Let's just get control, mind and space, and to deal with it. But there are rough moments. And, I heard a lot from friends and people I met that went, oh my God, I see, on Facebook or on LinkedIn or, you've got this amazing life. And I go, life looks really good on social media. My real life, not so much. But the whole idea is I have amazing friends that I've met in London. I mean, I still have a therapist here in Winnipeg, but, even, occasionally jumping on the Hue shows, it's just a great way to kind of find a different space with a lot of really amazing like-minded women and be able to kind of feel that I can unpack an emotion and a feeling because I'm probably not the only one feeling it in that moment and realize that we're all together. And we did a lot of that during the lockdowns.
Yes.
Right. And I think that really cemented from the time we met at Deer Lodge, to now that, we really have so much that we can talk about and in common. And things that we both feel very passionate that we want to work on to deal with it. So, it's really support. And again, that's what the pandemic taught me, at least, is the importance of the people in my life.
Yes.
I need quality people who can be real friends. That it's not all the sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes there's storm clouds and hail and wind. And if you're there for both, then you're really an amazing friend. And I found that.
Oh, well, and that is just, part of, I think, the beauty and the joy, right?
Yeah.
That life can bring you.
Yeah.
So there is, I hear, a book.
Yeah. Yep.
Needless to say, it's the Cynthia story.
No, it's not. So I met this really amazing person. She's a professional coach, corporate leadership style coach in London. And she's a friend. So it wasn't a coach. We were just at the pub sharing a drink. And we were talking about it. And I really was struggling to put the words on the paper. This was back December of last year. And by the time I left our chat at the pub, I had 3 book ideas in it, and I already come up with a technique in order to put the words on the page to write the book. I did that in January. 23 days, I've written the book. Now, editing, as you well know, some great writers like Joanne Zook, you know what? Editing a book is much harder.
Yes.
So thanks to you again, making the connection of someone who's going to help me get through this edit phase so that I can get this book in people's hands. And it's about acceptance without understanding. And the whole idea is to explain it in much greater detail. Yes, there are elements of, quote, the Cynthia story in there to demonstrate how I learned something or how I interpret something. But for the most part, it's really a self-help book for people to learn about acceptance without understanding as a way to move forward. And so right now I'm targeting the fall to have that book available and to publish initially as an ebook and then orderable on Amazon as a paperback.
Oh my goodness. So now you're getting into publishing and
Yes.
all of that.
Yes.
And you're right, editing, because how do you take out parts of something that you have a heart and soul with, right? And trying to second guess, people are going to love that, or people don't need to hear about that. Was it hard for you to get this book done? Or like you said, you had a map in your mind or an idea, but there's a big process from being in your brain to being on paper.
Well, I had the idea for the book in 2019 when we first met. Another one in the Hue archive, right?
Right.
Pre-lockdowns, pre-COVID. And I figured, when I'm traveling and I was doing my global adventure bit, that I would write it.
It didn't happen.
You know what, Tracy? I wrote 5 chapters while traveling 3 times, each time in a different voice. I was still struggling to find my voice. And so the secret that I learned was I just dictated it. That is my voice. But then I also realized, oh my gosh, do I really speak like that? Because all the editing of all those words you don't want in a written form, was part of the challenge. So, yeah. So I've had this for an idea for a while. I've had 2.5 years of time to write it. Haven't got it done. But now it's written. Just needs editing. And then we publish.
Where do you see this going? And what are your hopes for it? For even the whole acceptance without understanding?
Well, personally, I want it to be a global message that is understood as to what it is, not because my ego says I want to have this global. The message was given to me by what I just referred to as spirit, much more like the indigenous peoples refer to spirit. And it's told me that I need to make this message global. Part of the work with Outright is I now have a platform globally to take this message and help others understand acceptance. And so that's really for me what it's about. And along the way, I'll pen a few other books and put it out. But again, my whole life goal is simply share the message of acceptance without understanding in order to create a better world for everyone. That's it.
It sounds simple. What is the next step after acceptance without understanding?
I think there's a lot there when you read the book. There's a lot there for people to really chew into, because every conversation I have, I'm able to draw back to, well, that's acceptance without understanding as we, talk about it. And the complexity is You know, how does a woman in the United States today look at their government and go, well, they get me as a woman, and they have to do it, given the ruling that came out this past week, where our rights over our own body was taken away. And I would say, I can accept that they made a decision to deal with it, but the challenge is, see, acceptance without understanding teaches you a red line, a line in the sand. And they crossed it because whatever beliefs that they have that drive them through, because it wasn't a case of law, that when their beliefs affect the way I live my life, that's crossing the line. They are free to believe those. I will fight for their right to have their beliefs, to have, religious freedom. But if that's not the way I live my life, that's not the way that I see it, then anything that you do based upon that is imposing upon me. And acceptance without understanding says, no, that's a red line. And there's a lot of red lines.
That's interesting. Yeah, because, yes, what's been happening in the States is very, very hard to understand, let alone accept.
Right.
And there's, like you said, there's so much more. We talked briefly about Outright and the work that they do for the community. How are things in Canada, or even in Winnipeg, for the LGBTQIA community? Have we come along, progressed?
That's a really interesting question because, I obviously didn't, quote, jump back into my community roles with it, but I did meet with friends. And I would say that, unfortunately, over the last 2.5 years, the needle doesn't seem to have moved in Winnipeg. It is exactly where it was. And again, I think that Canada overall has experienced a lot of the same pseudo-political movements and so forth that are trying to influence levels of government that are either trying to claw back on human rights that have been gained or dealt with. I mean, right now, the next big fight of clawing back is same-sex marriage. Like, we settled this. We dealt with this. We put it to bed. But now, all of a sudden, it's open for discussion again. And it's like, really? Like, when do we say enough is enough? And we're tired of talking about this because we settled this.
Yes.
And we can move forward. But we're not being allowed to because those people that feel that their point of view has been ignored or not heard, that they get to roll it back and we have to live by their point of view is really what we're facing. Rather than finding a middle ground. And if everybody could understand acceptance and accept each other's point of view. See, one of the powerful parts about acceptance without understanding is that if you find something so distasteful about another human being that you do not want to interact, but you can accept that you have this reaction and you can sit down and have dialogue, that creates a safe space for each of you to talk about where you're coming from and why. And that allows you to, as I've said many times, you start with acceptance without understanding, but you grow to acceptance with understanding. And that really, to your question, that's the evolution of acceptance with understanding. It is growing to acceptance with understanding. But that comes after.
The acceptance. Yeah, I know. It is a process, but you're right. And it's those initial conversations. And they're hard, right?
Yes.
I mean, because people are so set in their ways. And I find that as much as like this whole pandemic has, brought us together, so-called.
Yes.
It has really torn a lot of people apart.
It has.
And why is that? Just lack of communication? Is it fear?
I think it's a lot of things. Fear, definitely, right? I think there's a lot of people that really struggle with identities that are not theirs. And the initial reaction is fear, right? I call it the FUD factor. It's in the book.
Yes. Oh,
Fear,
good.
uncertainty, and doubt. The FUD factor, F-U-D. And one of those three elements kicks in, and that's that negative voice that we hear in ourselves. Even when we're judging ourselves, that's fear, uncertainty, and doubt talking to us. And I can tell you, from experience, unfortunately, that even very dark places that, certainly LGBTIQ youth and everybody face globally, we talk about really ugly statistics about that dark place. That's all fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So when we can learn tools and techniques to address fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and for me, it was the flashlight.
Oh.
It's a dark place. So I will go into this virtual dark place, but I'll carry a flashlight. That's my tool, my weapon. And I will shine the light on every corner to see what's scaring me.
Whoa.
And when I find out there's nothing there, it illuminates it, and I go, well, why do I have fear, uncertainty, and doubt? And it allows me to unpack that in a healthy way to go forward. Now, I was taught this by a mental health professional. This is not something that Cynthia just imagined. No. And so if somebody's struggling, I would say, please seek a mental health professional to help you find your flashlight, in these very troubling times. So that's really the challenge that people have, to go through the cycle. And when we can ultimately overcome our own fear, uncertainty, and doubt, then we can step into what I call being your authentic self. And we use that term for the LGBTQ plus community a lot. But what I have found in all my travels, and of course women are a part of, that most people are not living an authentic life. And so every human being needs to live their authentic self and not be living by fear, uncertainty, and doubt of, I got to behave this way, or the neighbor got this, so I got to get that. Right? That's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's tearing us down, going, we have to step up, we have to copy, we have to mimic, we have to somehow look bigger, better, or equal to when your authentic self says, no, you don't.
Wow.
What do you need? And that comes from acceptance, a place of acceptance.
Well, we can hardly wait for this book to come out. I know that you're talking little nuggets of everything that we have talked about over the past 3 years, and it is so wonderful that it's all coming together. It does make sense, and you are making the world a better place.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry that you are leaving, but London calls, but Winnipeg will always be your home, Cynthia.
Absolutely, and thank you, Tracy. I appreciate our friendship.
Oh, well, thank you so much, too. And thank you, all of you, for joining us here at Hue at Home. And as always, stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time on Hue at Home.